here we are to continue our discussion of CSS, and today we're going to talk about background images. How did you do on the review questions? Remember, post your answers to Gradescope, and if you have any questions, post them to the comments and we can discuss the solutions, right? And again, there's more than one solution to all of these, but mostly for these particular questions, the solutions all revolve around Flex, so they're going to be very similar, okay? Let's get into background images. So the first thing I'm going to say about background images is that websites often show images. There's often pictures on a web page, but we can divide them into two categories, right? So one category is pictures of things that are content on the page. So these are things like the picture of the CEO at your company, your photo in your profile page, the picture of a product that a site is selling, the image on your Instagram feed that you took of you sunbathing in Cancun or wherever, right? Okay. So those are all content images, okay? And whenever you have content images, those should always be handled by the image tag, the img tag, right? So why is that? Well, whenever you have content on the page, the content always has some markup. So when we have a heading tag H1 through 6 or a paragraph tag, right, the P tag or a list tag, we are declaring that this is content on the page. It can be searched, it can be indexed, it can be, screen readers can read the content, and images are the same way. So sometimes you have something that's a paragraph, but you have something that's a picture of something, and we can't actually write it or display it as a paragraph, so we use the image, right, because it's a picture. So in that case, we use the image tag, right? So what about the background image then, right? So what is the background image? Well, anytime you have a web page that has a repeating pattern or some ornamentation or an icon, an arrow on a button, something like that, or even like a background, a picture of some waves that gives a particular mood for the content that you're talking about, but the ocean isn't exactly what we're talking about, right? It isn't a thing that we're selling, or a photo of somebody's Airbnb apartment or whatever, right? Whenever we have something like that, we always include it in the page as the background image through CSS because it's part of the design. Okay, so that's the difference there. Either it's content, something that we're talking about, or it's part of the design, right? It's a part of the appearance of the page, okay? So what's the difference, right? Well, the image tag gives you a particular element that we can talk to and access and manipulate. The design is in our CSS, and we might want to change the design. So if we think about separation of concerns, anything we put in the style sheet is easily changed through the style sheet. If we put something in the page as a tag, then we have to go to the content and structure of the page to make the edit, right? And so that's not, if it's part of the design, it shouldn't be in that zone. It should be in the CSS zone, right? Okay, so anyway, let's move on here, right? Let's talk about the Zen Garden examples. So the Zen Garden is kind of a weird take because none of the images on the Zen Garden are content. And maybe that is the case, right? I mean, you might actually have a picture in there, but they didn't include any images. So none of the images that you see are part of the content. All of the images on the Zen Garden page are part of the design. Therefore, they're all inserted into the page through CSS, okay? So let's take a quick look at some of the Zen Garden stuff, right? So if I look at this design here, Apothecary, it shows us this picture of a bottle, but the bottle really doesn't have anything to do with the CSS of the page. It's really the theme of the page and part of the design, right? So this is supposed to look like an old time apothecary, right? So we show a bottle, might have some aspirin in it or something, right? If I scroll down here, it shows this person with this, these two colored triangles. So that's obviously like design element. Like the page isn't really talking about this anatomical drawing, right? Okay. Let's scroll down a little more. Let me find another one. Oh yeah, so how about these arrows, right? So the arrows right there, the little hands, this one says next design and this one says previous designs. And actually the markup on the page, like if I look at my Zen Garden page, I kind of changed mine. right? We'll talk about that. So if I look at that, this is actually next designs. That's the arrow to the right, and this view all designs is the arrow to the left, right? So when I look at the page here, what happened to the text, right? So through CSS, we can do all sorts of tricky things with the background image, right? Let's take a look at this button just for a minute here, just to get an idea of what's going on, right? And the possible, the possibilities that are available to you as the designer, right? And web developer, right? So here I have this next link or li tag, right? List tag, and then I have the anchor tag inside here that is, the a tag, right? And when I open that up, you can see next designs is the text, right? Oops, why does it do that? And then it has above it, it has this anchor tag, right? So, this is the text inside there. And when I select this, you can see that it's, it highlights the button there, right? It shows up as blue. And when I look at the styles right here, you can see that it's got a background image that's image sprite PNG, right? No repeat, bottom right. So that kind of decides what the picture is, right? The URL sets the image. No repeat says, like, should the picture be repeated to fill the space? And then bottom right is the alignment, okay? And then the background size is setting the size of the image, right? So they must have had a larger or smaller image and they're scaling it, right? And then the text they're hiding, right? So the text is hidden, right? And then you can do a few ways to hide the text, it depends, right? But generally that's what we're doing is we're setting the background image here and hiding the text, okay? So how does the background image work? Let's talk more about some of the properties that are available. So first of all, you have the background image property itself, and you can set an image. So essentially, you'll do it the same way we did it here, URL, and then follow it with the name of the file, right? So you can name any image file, and it'll put it there. And then we have the background repeat property, right? So background repeat lets us repeat an image, so it can be repeated on the x-axis, on the y-axis, or both axes, right? Okay, or no repeat. So you just have the image and it appears once. That's what's happening here, okay? And then there's the background position property. So this position property can be a lot of things. So it can be a keyword, so it can be a line left, right, top, bottom, or a combination of those. So you can say left, top, bottom, right, okay? You can also do center. So you can do center top, center bottom. If you just say center, it'll be in the middle horizontally and vertically, okay? Then you can set the background size. So the image itself will have a physical size in pixels, but we can also scale that image to any size here by setting the background size. Let me actually go back to position just one more moment because I realized I forgot to mention pixel position. So if you use the keywords, you can just position something top, left, right, or bottom. But if you set the pixel value, you can move it like 10 pixels to the left, 50 pixels down, right? So you can set like an absolute position in pixels if you like. You can also set this in percent or any of the other available units. 2 centimeters from the left, 5 millimeters from the top. So back to background size. So here you can set the size of the image and it determines how it fills the space. And there's a couple keyword options that are really useful for this. So essentially what we got to realize is that when we set the background image property, it's going to be filling another block or another element. Okay, so if we have a div and our div is 100 pixels by 100 pixels, then the image will fill that 100 pixel by 100 pixel area. It won't fall outside, right? So what we want to do is we want to, sometimes fill the entire space. And background size gives us a couple keywords for that. And there's a keyword for cover, and there's a called cover that makes an image fill the entire space. And then there's a keyword called contain. So that makes the image fit within the space without covering the entire space. And we'll take a look at how that works in a moment. And then there's an attachment property. So attachment determines if the image scrolls with the screen or if the image sits still while the screen content scrolls, okay? So I know that's a lot to absorb just talking about it. So what I've got is I've got a kind of a little playground file that you can use to experiment with some of these properties to get a feel for how they work, right? So you can find that in the lessons folder here, and it's the, you know what, I forgot to upload it. Let me upload it right now. Added, actually I just misspelled that, but no big deal. I'm just gonna upload that there. Yeah, there we go, sorry. And then, oh yeah, there's our background image HTML right there. So you can download this and then open it in your browser. I have it here. Let me enlarge that a little bit, right? And what do we have here? So we have like some sample, like a sample CSS rule. Imagine I have a div here that's maybe like 500 by 500 or something, right? And if you want to set the background color, you can choose a color here. So I could choose gray, or white, or whatever, right? If you want to set the background image property, you can pick. I just have this set up to choose one of two images. You can actually go in there and change the image if you want, but I have it set to pick a couple images, right? So I got the cat, and then I have this pattern, okay? So the pattern is repeating, right? So we don't see a seam when the pattern repeats, but the cat, you can see like it repeats here. So what we're seeing right now is the cat at actual size. So the cat image is as big as we see it here. I'm going to switch the background repeat to no repeat. So that's what the cat would be. Like if I downloaded the cat and just opened it on my desktop, it would look just like this. If I want to set the size of the cat, I can choose any of these properties here. Now, I just hard-coded 40, 100, 50%, and 100% in there, but you could actually type in any number for these. Cover and contain are these special properties that make the image fill the available space. So if I choose cover, what's going to happen is the cat is going to fill the available space, and it's a little hard to tell here, but it's going to get cropped off a little bit at the top and bottom, or the left and right. So in other words, what's going to happen is the browser is going to take the smaller dimension of the cat and fit it to the largest dimension of the container, and then scale the cat proportionally. So that means some of the cat will bleed off either the left and right or the top and bottom, okay? If we choose the other property, contain, you can see the cat shrinks a little bit because it's a little bit wider than it is tall, and this container is a square. So what's happening there is now the cat is fit inside the box, so the largest dimension of the image is filling the smallest dimension of the container. And that means that there's some blank space left over, okay? So these are really useful options. Cover is like great, right? I use this all the time, right? Contain could be useful too. And then if you need to set the size, this is good too, right? So let's play with the size for a minute. So if I set the size to 40 pixels, you can see I've got one cat because there's no repeat, right? Then, if I choose repeat on the X, the cat repeats horizontally. If I repeat on the Y, cat repeats vertically, right? And if I choose repeat, it fills the entire space, horizontal and vertical, right? And, it depends on the size of the image, like how many cats we see, right? Okay, let's play now with the position property. And you can go through here and you can set these all you want, right? I'm going to do left and center. Hard to tell what's going on here. I'm going to switch it back to no repeat, and you can see the cat is on the left in the vertical center, right? And then from here, the cat is repeated, okay? If I choose left and bottom, it's going to be left bottom. If I choose left top, right, this is pretty obvious, like what's going on here. If I choose center, then the cat's going to be in the middle, right? So if I choose center and then I choose, let's choose cover, then I know my cat is going to be centered and filling the entire space. It'll bleed a little bit off the left and right because I think it's a little bit wider, okay? So anyway, so play around with this and get a feel for how these properties work, and kind of try all of them, right? Just test them because they're all available to you. You can try this other image here too. So this is a repeating pattern. So if I switch this to no repeat and then make it, like maybe I don't want this pattern so large, this is where the size could come in. So I could scale my pattern to be a little bit smaller, and then I could repeat it from here, right? So now when it repeats, it fills the space like this, right? So experiment with that and see what happens. One more thing. If you have content, so imagine that this is a div. Maybe I should add that where I show what the markup is here. That would be a good idea. So next version will have that, right? So if you have content inside the box, the background color is, or the background color goes behind the background image, and the background image and color goes behind the content. So you can see here, if I set this to no repeat and then I choose a background color, the background color goes behind the image. So the image goes on top of the color. But if I have content, like if I add a box here, you can see the boxes that I'm adding. Imagine these are just divs with some kind of background color, right? If I add these, they go in front of the background image. So background image is always in the background, right? It's in the name, right? So anyway, so experiment with this and see what you can come up with for the properties. Get a feel for how these properties work, and then we'll continue in the next video. So as always, thanks for watching, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say in the comments.